She thumps a cane and drinks champagne. She's formidable and judgmental, but we can guarantee that she's a quintessential Lady D, who recognizes great potential. What would Danbury do?
Welcome to What Would Danbury Do, your guide to Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series from A to V. This episode is brought to you by Kensington's newest title from Kate Pearce, The Rancher Meets His Match. My first Kate Pearce book was recommended to me by a girl I met in line at a reader event, but there's a pandemic on and serendipitous recommendations are a little harder to come by. But let me tell you about The Rancher Meets His Match so you can have all the ease of a friendly recommendation without going out into the world. It's the fourth book in Kate's Western series, The Miller of Morgan Valley. Caden Miller is handy with a toolbox, a sought-after master carpenter. But when his ailing neighbour needs a hand renovating his rundown property, Caden is more than willing to help. What he doesn't expect is his childhood nemesis Julia to be there, watching his every move. Julia has never understood why she and Caden don't get along, but she's very happy to cooperate if it helps her father. As Caden and Julia spend more and more time together, it becomes clear that whatever went on when they were kids, their adult feelings are much, much more complicated. You can find The Rancher Meets His Match and the other titles in the Miller of Morgan Valley wherever books are sold, and we do recommend buying from your local independent bookstore. Find out more at kensingtonbooks.com. As for this episode of What Would Danbury Do, we're diving back in to finish off our second epilogue series. There's no running this time as we revisit Gregory and Lucy, but that doesn't mean there's no physical exertion. And look, there may have been some tears, and not just Lucy's, or Gregory's, or the newborn twins. Don't forget you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and join the conversation using the hashtag WWDDpod.
I just feel like you guys are going to make fun of me this whole episode, so I feel like I should just kick it off and bend over and get ready for it. I was actually very emotionally moved by it. I don't know necessarily that I liked it, but I found it very affecting the whole way through. So I wasn't kidding when I said that there may have been tears. There were actually, in fact, tears as I was reading through it. So Julia Quinn sort of found her writing stride again in a way that she hadn't in a lot of the other epilogues, because she did create quite an emotional little scene, and I think she did a really good job of building up the characterization of Gregory in some really meaningful ways. And also, Hyacinth is so much more Hyacinth in this epilogue than she ever was in her own epilogue. So yeah, just like we were all super surprised at the end of On the Way to the Wedding, when we actually didn't hate that one, I really didn't hate this one. So there's nice parallel structure going on there for me.
Because we were going to record this a couple of days ago, and then life happened. But my gut reaction to this was that I hated it. Hated it. And I think the more that I think about it, the more that I think that I was judging it arguably very unfairly by being like, Julia Quinn has written this scene before better. But it's not a Bridgerton. Well, I mean, it's a book that I'm going to campaign that we actually do read for this show eventually, because it exists in the Bridgerton universe, but The Secret Diary of Miranda Shiva has almost this exact thing, this traumatic not traumatic pregnancy, but traumatic birth.
Traumatic birth experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
It's all I could think about.
It's true, because I was reading it and thinking that it felt very familiar, but I hadn't pinned it back to a specific Julia Quinn book. I sort of had just pinned it to, it's not an unusual scene to have in a romance novel. So I just figured that I had read a very similar scene before, probably a couple of times before, given how many historical romances I've read over the course of my reading life. But more that I thought that she'd done a reasonably good job with the material.
Particularly because like it's a very fraught experience, and it's one that kind of plays out through the eyes of someone who doesn't have any power in the situation. Like Gregory can't do anything to help. Like Lucy will recover or she won't, and it's a romance, so obviously she will recover because that's kind of the contract of the HEA. But yeah, it just I kept thinking about Secret Diary of Miranda Shiva, and it's because you've got more time, and the emotions of the scene feel, I don't want to say more earned, because that feels a little bit...
Well, it's more, I think, that because these second epilogues are so removed from the original text, the scene relies very heavily that you have recently read On the Way to the Wedding, like that you're still incredibly familiar with that story, and also that you're still very emotionally invested in those characters. Where Miranda Cheever, of course, because it's during the bulk of the original text, then obviously you're still in situ essentially in that story. So it makes a lot more sense that would be done better, because it would be, a part of the greater
and that's why
the world of that story.
And that's why I feel like, well, actually it's why I know that I'm being unfair by putting the two next to each other and being like, well, this one's not any good. Like, how can it?
Fortunately, I don't remember that book, so I couldn't make the comparisons. I know I've read it. I just felt generally numb reading it. Like, maybe it was more apathy, but I felt it was either overwrought, rightfully, or a little clinical at times. It kind of toggled a bit for me. And I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just sort of sat there in the story, and I was like, oh, thankfully it's over. Also, the author's note about how many inquiries she got about the names of all their children, I'm like, surely there's more interesting things to be asking the author about than like naming children that are never going to have a book. Like,
we can't get too deeply into that because you're straying into my WTF territory.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But I am just going to flag that when it comes to Gregory and Lucy and questions fans might have about them, that is probably the most interesting. Like, they're not particularly interesting.
I'm going to cut readers slack. That's the only interesting thing about them.
Like, the most interesting thing about their future.
Be Benedict.
But the most interesting thing about their future is the number of children that they...
Oh my god! Like if they were like lived in present day, they would have their own show on like that family TLC channel.
Oh, also because we now canonically know that Gregory's a gentleman farmer. And so like that. Oh, what a show! I would watch that.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking the same thing.
So
I'm like,
really...
I know that we're supposed to be taking the piss out of them right now, but like, I really want this show on the air so that I myself can partake of it.
Also, like, it's free labor. They've just basically had their entire workforce.
Well, that's absolutely why they had that many children.
I don't think I ever told you this before, but the farming community where I grew up had a really high number of Amish farmers. In fact, the farm where I grew up was an Amish farm when we bought it. We spent the summer after we moved in, like putting the electricity and plumbing into the house because it wasn't in the house when we moved in. So it reminded me a lot of that, the idea of a gentleman farmer, the idea of having lots of kids, and the idea of like living without indoor plumbing and electricity to try and make everything work.
I love that, like, we straight away go to our heads, like, this is a show that could be in competition with the Duggars.
I can see it. I can see Gregory wandering around with like a waistcoat and his shirt sleeves rolled up and like pitching in with his tenants to like fix the roof or whatever.
Leaning against a tree with a pipe jauntily out of mouth. Yeah.
I say that we pitch this one to Shonda and see what happens.
Because when you think of like a spin-off of the Bridgertons, you really think about Gregory.
Well, I mean, I hadn't, but now I'm into it.
Maybe, perhaps.
What kind of farmer is Gregory?
A gentleman farmer. He farms gentlemen.
He just pops them up out of the field.
No, Lucy's popping them out.
Well, what do they farm in the UK? Sheep, obviously.
Great.
Potentially, they definitely have like a couple of cows to keep the household in milk.
I don't know how I got into a conversation with some friends. If you were to have a farm, what would you farm?
It's like the new personality test. What would you farm? What would you grow?
Yeah, the person who said that they would farm lavender is absolutely who you think. And likewise, the one who said pigs. It was a bold statement to make in a room with at least 2 vegetarians. But
we were not sentimental. We used to name our pigs things like ham bone and bacon, and they're very, very smart, but we were never allowed into the pig pen because they will take you down if you're carrying the slop bucket or whatever. They're very strong and very big and very determined to have their own way.
My mum had a pig growing up that thought it was a dog. That's it. That's my entire knowledge of pigs.
We had a lamb that thought it was a dog.
Oh, there you go. I mean, I had a dog that was a dog, but choices, I guess.
Oh.
Anyway, this book
so moving on
is a thing that we've got to talk about somehow. Should we give some kind of summary?
I will do that. That's fine.
Cool.
It's bookended by 2 letters from Hyacinth back home to Gareth. And Hyacinth has basically come to visit Gregory and Lucy while Lucy is in confinement with her latest children. And then, surprise, it's twins, but then something goes a little bit awry and she ends up hemorrhaging, which of course they don't know what it is. They're just like, she is bleeding a lot. As a result of the loss of the blood and the trauma, she slips into a coma. Nobody at the time has any concept of what is happening or how to fix it. So they basically just have to wait and see if Lucy is going to recover from the hemorrhage. So a lot of it is actually Gregory sort of trying to imagine a life where Lucy doesn't wake up, and basically he and Hyacinth visiting Lucy's sickbed a lot and like trying to talk her into getting better. And then of course, because it's a romance novel, eventually Lucy does in fact wake up and she's very weak but very alive and likely to stay so for the foreseeable future. And then we end with another letter from Hyacinth to Gareth, the end.
Where she explains that the thing that she had whispered to Lucy when she realized Lucy is like losing consciousness is that she better wake up or Hyacinth will hurt her.
I mean, Hyacinth did in her letter acknowledge
that's what I meant.
The inherent contradiction in
and that she was very glad that Lucy in her like comatose state didn't realize the contradiction of it.
Hyacinth really was more Hyacinth in this than she was in her epilogue. Like in her epilogue, we talked about how, she'd sort of taken on that thing that all of the Bridgerton women tend to. But in this one, she's still got her edge. She's still snappy. She's still narky. I actually really enjoyed Hyacinth a lot more in this one than I ever did when we were reading through her own epilogue.
Same. And I was thinking about this a little bit. Something that I noticed is that Hyacinth kind of needs the dynamic of a sibling to be her best self. But in particular, I think she really thrives when she is in the company of Gregory. Like there's something really lovely about their dynamic. And it's one that I don't think we get to see as often in romance novels, where it's a brother and sister who are like close in age and friends. Because she's got sisters that she could be friends with. She's got her own actual friends. But there's a closeness between her and Gregory that is really sweet. And it's one that I think one of the reasons that I like Hyacinth so much is that is a relationship and like a sibling dynamic that I recognize, because that's a lot of how I am with my own brother.
It's that thing where you can see Hyacinth absolutely tearing Gregory a new one, and then if somebody said anything from the sideline, she'd haul over and like punch that person in the mouth, because nobody gets to insult her brother except her.
Yeah.
Which she's going to do on the regular.
The fact that she's younger than him, but is also very definitely like
the alpha.
Yeah. Also very much dynamic, I recognize. My poor brother.
I'm sure he loves you very much.
Yes. No, he's very nice. He's much nicer than I am, so he does actually love me quite a lot. But apparently it's very common for younger sisters, like when you're very close in age, like within sort of a year or two, if it's a older brother, younger sister, the younger sister very often takes the lead.
Is that because girls mature earlier?
Well, it's because girls are socialized to be the mature ones earlier. We can put a question mark on whether girls genuinely mature earlier, but we are socialized to be mature earlier than boys.
Probably if Hyacinth hadn't been in this epilogue, I think it would have been worse. But I mean, if you think about it, we should have probably lost. This is so dark. We should have lost a Bridgerton woman at some point because of just the likelihood of dying in childbirth. Like particularly Lucy and Violet, who had so many children. Like the fact that all these women have continued to live despite being quite prolific in their children is quite rare.
Also, the fact that they managed to get all the...
all the children are alive, also.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, we should have some gaps in that alphabetic naming system.
Too many weddings, not enough funerals, damn it. That's what we really need in our romance novels, more funerals.
Wow.
I think we should WTF ourselves for that.
Yes. We're our own What the Featheringtons.
Can we talk about how weird Catherine is? Or was it just me?
I was about to say how much I loved her, but go on, tell me why she's weird.
I think it's actually probably my WTF as well. Like, it can't be a new kind of character. It just has to be a carbon copy of another one. And in this case, it's a carbon copy of the sister-in-law who is actually not genetically related to this child, but shares the name, and looks exactly like that aunt and is exactly like her mother. So, like, Julia Quinn's like, you know what? I've done too much of recycling. What I should do is a recycling merge. And then this child exists. I mean, it's kind of nice that she's all dependable and stuff, but I just found it a bit weird.
Is she the oldest?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was probably maybe why I didn't find it so weird.
Maybe I was just identifying, it was just too close to the bone. Maybe I just called myself weird.
Adele, it was the uncanny valley effect. She was too similar. So it actually looked unreal. I don't know. I think Catherine is... I liked her. And I liked the sort of...
I like the solemnity, I think, of the conversation. Like, she's trying so very hard to be a grown-up and like have this grown-up conversation with her dad. And like Gregory is just feeling his feelings all over the place through this epilogue, but I felt it didn't feel, I guess it didn't feel toxic in any way. Like he was very open, like, I can't do this without you, and let's be real, everybody needs you more than they need me. And also I have a special bond with my oldest kid because I didn't know how to be a dad before she taught me, so that's something that we share. And he was just like, you know, he just seemed to be incredibly emotionally in touch with himself, so that was nice.
I think it also was like a really grounding kind of moment. Because he does, like, Gregory does kind of come to realize it's not that he can't do it without Lucy, it's that he doesn't want to.
And I liked that distinction, because the thing is, men aren't useless. They can do things if they try and want to do it. And you would hope, in the event that Lucy did die, that he would stand up and do the right thing, and he would, because he's a Bridgerton, and also I think probably Violet would move in, but yeah, I think it was good to make that distinction for sure, that he's capable, he just wants to do it with her, he wants his teammate.
And I guess, yeah, so that's what I mean when I say that it's grounding. Like, it takes that conversation that he has with Lucy. Oh, it's not really a conversation because she is comatose. Literally comatose. But it's this moment where he verbalizes, but we've already been shown it. We've seen that he's perfectly capable of being the support, like emotional support for his children, of being a good father and a caring father. He's capable, and so we get to see it, and then we also get told it, but like in a way that didn't feel kind of over. Yeah.
I'm going to talk the two of you around to liking this epilogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was hard for me. I know the doctor left, which makes sense because they always talk about in all the epilogues about how easily Lucy has babies, so you wouldn't worry that she was going to have an issue. But like the way the midwife was just like shrug, like, which is probably very indicative of the time. But I was just like, so you just massaged her stomach a bit, her womb area a bit, caused her great pain.
It hurts.
No,
that still
it hurts. Like, if a cramp hurts, that, like, someone massaging your womb after you just had like 2 babies go through there is kind of like
and get everything out. Ow.
Yeah. No, I knew that was legit, but it's kind of just like we've done everything we can. Shrug. She might get an infection. It happens a bit. You know, like, shrug.
Can I have my fee, please? Bye.
You can pay me in chook. I guess it was so of the time. I mean, women still die now in, like, not third world countries for having big babies. Like, the amount of time and effort and care that has been put into women's focused health and medicine is ridiculous. But of course she came good.
Thank heavens for romance novels.
Mm-hmm. Do you reckon she can have kids again?
A hemorrhage, yeah. My mom had a hemorrhage after me, and she had 2 more. So, but really, what I really hope that the final message out of this whole story is for Gregory to leave her the fuck alone for a minute, let her body actually recover, and like just take it to the bathroom in your hand, my friend. Like,
I read this a week ago and I might have forgot, but it sounds like he didn't let her like heal for a month or so afterwards. Like, it sounds like they went straight back, like in Britney Spears style, you know, like she had 2 babies in a year, like what is it, Irish twins or whatever, like.
Oof, yeah.
Let the lady heal.
Yeah, no, well, they've never let her. She never heals. Like, she's constantly having babies, like 2 babies within 18 months and whatever. Yeah.
I am just going to say, like, she's very definitely an active participant in that, though.
Oh, I mean, obviously, yes.
What I'm saying is, I think that it's more about both of them not being particularly imaginative than it is like
In
Or
so many ways.
sensible. They're not practical. And you would think that Lucy, who was incredibly sensible and practical, would be somewhat more practical about this and just be like, hey honey, how about a hand job tonight? You
Also,
do me, I'll do you, we'll both go to bed happy.
There is no way they didn't have multiple children in that bed most nights, if not or in that room.
No, I don't think they'd have a nanny.
He's a gentleman farmer. It's not like he has like a huge house.
He's
But
also
he has
amazing at investments. He has a ton of money.
I'm sorry about that.
Also, gentleman farmers 100% would have had nannies and wet nurses and whatnot.
he quite like they have a nanny.
Yeah, Mimsy.
They talk about Mimsy.
But poor Mimsy, that's a lot of freaking children to nanny.
I feel like they
better get
need 2 nannies. I think
Yeah.
that's
Or 3.
Mimsy should probably get a really good Christmas bonus. Yeah, no, I can't see them crawling into bed with their parents. Like,
that wasn't a thing back then, really, was it?
well, I mean, it wasn't a
Aristocracy.
thing for the upper classes.
Yeah, that's what. Like they were cold as ice, except in their marriage bed where it was steamy hot.
Are we ready
Anyway.
to do what do we have anything else, or are we ready to do what the
No, I
Featheringtons?
think
No,
there's
I
not
think
much to
so.
discuss really if you think about it.
I recognize that the Bridgertons have, like the entirety, like the Bridgerton clan, have an inordinate number of children and cousins and whatever. But like there are more than fucking 11 names in a baby name book. Like what the fuck? Just, you can show that you love and appreciate somebody without having to name your children after them. Like, write them a thank you note. Give your child their own fucking name so that whenever somebody yells Daphne, 8 people don't turn around at the same time. Like,
Daphne Prime.
if you like, even if you want to like lean heavily into the biblical names, like there is a lot of characters in the Bible. There are several hundred names that are really good names, perfectly acceptable. Just like find another one. Find another one.
It kind of makes sense if you consider, like, I think it's stupid as well, but like when you consider how competitive the Bridgertons are, like I'm going to name my children after the most amount of relatives. I will beat you. And so maybe this is the first time Gregory's actually won anything.
Simply by the fact that he's just more prolific.
Oh, anyway.
I feel like Rudi should weigh in on this.
On the
What,
name
her
thing?
potentially being named after
Her
some
family member.
family.
So number 1, my parents refuse to admit that I'm named after my dad, despite the fact I have the same name as my father.
What was the one? I can't remember. You were telling me sort of what their latest one was, and it killed me.
That I'm named after Rudi Huxtable.
Yes, that's the one.
Which, timing-wise, it would work. I can understand why my black mother would want to name her black daughter after a very cute black girl on TV. I understand. I just don't believe it.
It just
Wow,
happens
it's
completely
not running.
coincidentally to also be the name of her
Completely
father.
coincidental.
Wow.
Also, I'm very rarely called Rudi by my family. Only time I ever get called Rudi is if I am in trouble. The moral of this is, and I've never really thought about this before, but I'm not so weirded out by the fact that all of these children are named after other people in their families. I am weirded out about the fact that none of them really have nicknames.
No, you're right.
Like,
That's true.
nicknames
actually.
that differentiate them from the people that they're named after. Like diminutives in particular. Like none of them have like little like baby names. Other than Minty, who
Ugh.
I know
We
you
do
guys
go
didn't
from
like.
again. And also
But
she
Minty was the
disowned
only
her-
kid that got like an adult name that then has a diminutive that they get called.
and like worst diminutive ever. So she should.
Look,
just
we're not having that
disown her
argument again.
parents. Yeah, whatever. Okay.
But like little baby Catherine, named after her Aunt Kate. Like that's just You just like, that's such a big name on such a little
Like,
person.
why
she should be
don't they call her
Katie or
Kitty?
Kit
Kitty
or-
or
Yeah. Like that's a big person name on a tiny little person.
Yeah.
That might be my What the Featherington, because I can't think of what my other one was meant to be. And I've
I
also
actually-
ranted about names for too long now.
Like, I would withdraw my What the Featherington if they all had nicknames instead. Like, okay, go ahead and name them all, whatever. But, like, call Hyacinth Cynthia or Violet Little V or something. Like, something.
Daphne would
cute.
be
or
Dee
Daffy
Dee.
or something.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to go Daffy, because that sounds like a duck. But
But not yet.
I know not yet.
So she could be the original, the OG Daffy.
Yeah. But
Haven't
yeah.
been both like he is.
But I would call little baby Daphne Dee Dee.
Oh, yeah, see?
I think that's cute. Anyway,
Julie Quinn, call us. Let us give your characters nicknames. We would be amazing at it.
Adele, did you have a...
Yes, I do. I have another one.
Here we go.
I think the whole Lucy la 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 thing is stupid. That's it. That's it.
I mean,
Like,
that's very
okay.
definitely not how it's meant to sound.
Like, that's looking at it on the page because he's just like, nope. And then they kept going at it again and again and again. And I'm
Oh my
like, this
God,
is not
yes.
as sweet as you think it is. It's just shit.
You are, I'm so sorry. You're so wrong. You are heartless. and
True.
horrible.
True.
You're right that it's difficult to read and take seriously. You
Yes,
are
thank you.
correct
I
in
am
that.
both heartless and correct.
If it was Lala, I would be okay with it. But it's the fact that there's a third La that makes it really hard.
Lucy. I don't know. I thought it was cute. I mean, let's be clear. I am obviously not at all able to talk about this story with any level of objectivity, given that it made me cry and I am a sook and a sucker on spectacular levels. But I liked it. La 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 Lucy. I thought it was cute.
Okay, I mean, like, it sounds better when you say it, but when you say it, because also Adele did the driest read.
Well, that's I didn't even do an eye roll. I just thought eye roll in my head when I was reading it. I'm like, oh my God. And sure enough, it's there again and again and again. And also, Catherine wouldn't refer to her as Lucy. It's her mum or mama or something. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't like it.
I did
I'm
not
heartless.
even think about that.
My youngest loves calling me Kate. She thinks it's hilarious.
Oh my
It's
God.
the best thing.
It
that
is
she
actually the
does.
funniest thing to do.
Yeah.
Call your parents by their real name.
Mm.
Oh, delicious.
That's what I used to do in if we were in like a supermarket and mum was ignoring the mum, I just go, Lynn! And she'd turn around because like
Yeah, actually, Sam, I do that. I still do that to my mom sometimes. Because my mom has recently had to has to get hearing aids, and she's not adjusting to it very well, so she just never wears them.
I didn't get the courage to use my parents' real names to their faces until I was in my 20s. And the very first time, so my brother came home for, I'm sure it was probably Christmas or something like that. But because he had moved out, and like when he came home, he heard me do this quite a lot. And then he built up the courage to do it too. And the very first time it happened, he got yelled at so badly. And he was like, but she... Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not the point. She's allowed. No, she's not allowed. She just gets away with it because...
She gets away with it.
Oh, so true, youngest.
Because she's a baby.
Oh.
I can't remember what... Oh, the fact that...
That
Catherine is
calls
calling her
La La
mother
Lucy.
La 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 Lucy.
It's time for...
What would Danbury do?
This is where we imagine that a character from another favorite book has written to the incomparable Lady Danbury to ask for advice. Today we hear from Benjamin, the hero of The Billionaire's Legacy by Reese Ryan. Dear Lady Danbury, I fell in love with Sloane when we were both kids, but there have been a lot of reasons for us to not be together over the years. The age gap, our respective goals, her first marriage. But then there was a wedding and a drink and dancing, and suddenly she saw me as a man and not her surrogate little brother, and it looked like everything was about to change. But I had a trip to Japan and she had a life in Nashville. Flash forward 6 months, and I go straight to Nashville from the airport to try and convince her to pick up where we left off and find out that she's been keeping a secret. Now we'll always be, now we'll always be, blah! Now we'll always be in each other's lives as we parent our twins, but how do I convince her that the feelings I have for her are not obligation or responsibility, and that our love can be stronger than the gossips tearing her apart for trapping me? When it comes to Sloane, I want everything. How do I convince her that we can have it? What would Danbury do?
It's on him to be vulnerable, because she is an incredibly vulnerable and unsafe space of 20 plus years of everyone undermining her and her worth. It's his job to make her feel worthy of their babies and his love and his support, and that he tells his family to go to fucking hell, basically, because they aren't good people. And you don't necessarily want them around the twins. If they're going to treat your partner and the mother of your children that way, they're not people you want in your life. Make a choice.
Very much what Adele said. And also making it clear that this is a decision that he made with purpose and with intent. You know, like he's chosen to come back home for her. And that the fact that there are children involved now is important, but is not. Well, I get, yeah, maybe thinking about what is the impact of having children involved in this now. Like, because it does make a difference. And
it speeds up the timeline a little bit. But, I mean, he was obviously going to Nashville because he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And now he has, like, solid financial, ethical, and moral reasons to be there. But that like, those reasons weren't the reason he went there in the first place.
I feel like there's, like, a conversation around taking his feelings out of the picture for a second. A conversation about the emotional support and the partnership as parents having those children. So she knows clearly, like, whether I'm with you or not, this is what I'm committing to, you and the children. And then I'm going to earn your trust. And maybe then you might consider risking yourself in trying for a relationship with because there's higher costs here. Like, if they try something and it doesn't work, it can make everything worse. So, yeah, I think he just needs to really think about what he wants and how he's going to support her so she doesn't feel like she's alone, because clearly she's felt alone in a lot of the stuff that's going on. If, you know, a whole town is bagging her constantly for a situation she can't control, which is the way she grew up, that's really unfortunate. So it sounds like his parents suck.
I think, well, yeah, like it also probably does come down to respecting the boundaries that she puts up, but still being prepared to have conversations, open conversations about whether those boundaries are doing what they should be doing. Like,
I just realized we're very much in Adele and Rudi advice, right, as opposed to like.
I know. Look, well, because I realized
this is a modern situation. We have a modern sensibility.
Listen, I like to sometimes provide actual like depth to my advice, whereas like other times I'm just like, but what if you just ran away? Although, like, look, when I do think about it, I'm like, do they have to stay in a town where, like, do they have real reasons for why they've got to be there? Because there's a part of me that thinks that Lady Danbury is maybe like, he's not the one that needs talking to. Like, he's made choices, and maybe Lady Danbury would be like, you do you, and goes and has a chat with Sloane.
It was interesting that you say that, because I did think really hard as to which character I would write the letter from. Like whether I wrote it from Benjamin's point of view or whether I wrote it from Sloane's point of view. I eventually chose Benjamin's point of view because like the conflict from his point of view is a little bit easier to articulate, whereas from Sloane's point of view it's like I have a lot of I have a big old chip on my shoulder.
Well, no, she's got earned trust issues. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they've been reinforced over and over and over again. Like,
I don't want to be with him if he's just here because of the kids. And even though he keeps telling me it's not just because of the kids, I don't really believe him that it's not just because of the kids.
And that's
like, that's going to be a really boring letter.
Well, I don't know, because I think that Lady Danbury would have some feelings about that and be like, he still has to pay child support. Regardless of what your relationship ends up being, he still should be involved in his children's lives, regardless of the state of your romantic relationship, whether it happens or not, whether it happens and ends. Like, he has a responsibility to hit these children.
yeah,
and like,
it's independent of you, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that he's there should in fact tell you something. Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. This is I feel like Lady Danbury is the kind of messy bitch that would be like, oh, so Benjamin asked for advice. Cool. Gonna go and talk to Sloane instead.
Frankly, you both need my help right now, so, the advice door is open.
Yeah.
I wish that there was some sort of deep metaphoric reason that I chose this book. I really chose it because there were twins in it. And I chose it because of the twins and because I wanted a book where the heroine goes through childbirth as part of the book. Yeah, so the ties are really more shallow than some of my other choices.
That's all for this episode of What Would Danbury Do? Now, normally this would be the end of the season, but the Bridgertons' Happily Ever After comes with a surprise. A story all about Violet. So we'll be back in a fortnight for the last episode of season 2. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BridgertonPod, or send us an email at bridgertonpod@gmail.com and share all your thoughts about this epilogue or about Bridgerton on Netflix. And if you're in a sharing mood, we'd also really appreciate for you to rate or review our podcast on your favourite podcast provider. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded land of the Gadigal, Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people, and edited by audio producer Rudi Bremer on Gadigal country. Thanks for listening, and remember, WWDD-pod. What Would Danbury Do is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.